Right, somehow I managed, instead of pausing the video, I managed to stop it. So we're on the second video now, part 2. So I don't know if you can see very well, but here there's a rope cordoning off one of the benches, and there's a sign, it says nobody can sit on this bench. And here there's a gap where people can sit, and there's a sign here that says only one individual or household can sit in these spaces, or this space. And the reason for that is because if you come to the church to pray on your own, you're not allowed to sit next to other people from different households. So if you come along, if you're sitting here, then you're the only person who can sit here. Your friends can't come and sit with you. However, if you come as a household, say 3 people, then you can all sit together. You don't have to go and sit in different places. And in this particular space, there are 3 spaces. So for example, you can sit over here, or here, or here. There's enough for 3 people. And throughout the church, a lot of the spaces are for 3 people, but some of them are for larger groups, some of them are for small, some just for 2 people, or even for 1. And this, we've had to be very strict about this, cordoned off. We've got these red cords all over the church. They look quite nice. They've been done by parishioners for whom I'm very grateful. But we've had to do this to cordon off the church to comply with the law, to enforce social distancing. So that's why we have cordoning, and you can only sit in particular spaces. But I'm going to pause the video again. I just remembered something. I meant to tell you that when there are not many people in the church, then you can sit in any of the available spaces. But remember what I just said about the 1 individual or household per space. And also to tell you, it's better to fill up the church from the front. That way, if you're the first in the church, there's no one else here, you go up the front to say your prayers. And then when the next person comes, they don't have to pass you. They can come and sit in the next available space, because we want to minimize people. Well, we don't want people to pass one another at all, but even if people are passing when you're in the bench, we don't really want that. So when you come to the church, go up to the front of the bench, the front of the church rather. At the moment, we have all the available spaces that we can have available, they're open. But what we might do during the week, on a weekday, if there are not many people at any one time, we might just ask people to sit up the front of the church. And the reason for this is that every day when the church is closed, those places where people have sat will have to be cleaned, they'll have to be sanitised, and that has to be done by the volunteers. So if they've only got to clean a few spaces, that makes it easier than cleaning the whole church, doesn't it? Later on, of course, when the numbers are greater, you will be allocated a place before entering the church. And I can explain about that at a later date. On the benches are also labelled, a bit like when you go to the cinema. You go to the cinema and you have a row number and a seat number. Well, here, the spaces all have numbers. And so supposing lots of people are coming to Mass, this could be a couple of months from now, we'll see how many people are in their group, we'll allocate them space according to the size of their group, and they'll go and sit in that space. But at the moment, just for private prayer, when there are not many of us, you can sit in any of the available spaces. Right, I'm going to pause the video again. Right, what I want to do now is just have a wander around the church. Now, I'm standing on the right-hand side of the church as you face the altar, and you can see here there's a cordoning off the benches on the right. You can also see the seats, or pairs of seats. So as we walk along, you can see that those pairs of seats are all available, and they're what we call just a particular space. So if you come on your own, you can sit in one of those spaces, but no one can sit next to you. But if 2 people come together, then they can occupy that space. There are more spaces at the front. There's an individual seat here, just to utilise the space. If someone comes in a wheelchair or some kind of mobility device, then we can remove that chair and they can sit there. And so if I go down the church, you can see this space, people can sit. This is cordoned off. So we've had to cordon off every other bench. And that's because of the 6 feet, 2 meters distancing. And so if people sat in every bench, they'd be too close to one another. we're sitting every other bench, and also you'll notice that there is a cord going down the middle of the bench, and that's to keep a 6-foot gap between the people at this end of the bench from the people at the far end of the bench. And it's the same on this side of the church too. Walking back down the church, we can see that it's all cordoned off like that. When you arrive, it might look very strange. We've tried to make it look as neat as possible, and it does look quite neat, but it'll look quite strange to you. Now we're just going to have a wander over to the Lady Chapel, and you'll see here that every other bench is cordoned off. And in the Lady Chapel, it's a bit unusual. We've asked people not to sit on the end of the bench, but further into the bench, so that they're not too close to the people sitting over here. We've had to keep that 6 feet distance. Now, in addition to cordoning off the benches, we've also had to cordon off the chapels. Now, if I turn round, here we see Our Blessed Lady in the Lady Chapel. And we've had to put no entry. That's sad, isn't it? No entry to the Lady Chapel. Poor old Blessed Lady. But we can come, thanks be to God, our church is open. We can come now and kneel before her statue and pray to her and honour her. Unfortunately, at the moment, we're not going to use our votive candle stands, because lots of people touching the votive candle stand, that's an opportunity for the spread of infection. So we've cordoned off the little chapel area, and we've taken all the votive candles away. It's the same over at the Sacred Heart. We'll take you over to the Sacred Heart in a minute. But here we see Our Lady's statue. Now, we were meant to cordon off these statues by 2 meters, but we can't do that, otherwise we wouldn't be able to get past. And it's the same with Saint Joseph over here, our patron Saint Joseph. We're meant to cordon that off. Now, this statue of Saint Joseph and the statue of Our Lady, and also the little statue of Saint Anthony, whose feast it is today, Saturday the 13th of June, we've been told not to venerate the statues. And what that means is not to touch the statues. So you can stand in front of the statue and pray. You can sort of bow before the statue to honour Our Lady or St. Joseph if you wish. But you can't touch the statue, because someone else could touch it and we could spread infection. Now here's the Sacred Heart Chapel with our Blessed Lord. And here again there's a no entry sign. We're not allowed to go in there. And also we're not allowed to light the candles. And again, these regulations, they're not arbitrary. We've had to implement all of these measures to comply with the laws, the guidelines laid down by the government. And the Archbishop has only been allowed to let us open the churches because he's assured the government, the state, that we're able to comply with these guidelines. Right, I'm back here in the middle of the church. And I just wanted to tell you something that's very important, that the church is only open for private prayer. And we've only been allowed to open the church specifically for that, for private prayer. And we still cannot have a public mass, and we can't have any like requiem masses or weddings, funerals, baptisms, anything like that. We're still not allowed to have anything like that we're not allowed to get any mass gathering of people at the moment. Nor can a group of people come together on their own, for example, to say the rosary. So a group of you who would normally come and say the rosary after Mass, you're not allowed to sort of arrange with one another to come to the church at the same time and say the rosary publicly. We're not allowed to do that. Again, the reason for that is because the idea is that it draws people to the church at the same time, and we're just not allowed to do that at the moment. So only private, individual prayer is allowed. Right, I'm standing now before the sacristy door. I don't know if you recognise this door, but when you're in the church and you're looking towards the altar, if you turn to your right, it's here, to the right of the altar, to the right of the Sacred Heart Chapel. And you see the signs way out there. There's a sign here that says way out, it's pointing that way. I don't want you to go to the back of the church. It doesn't mean to the back of the church, it means out this way. This is the only exit to the church. So as I said at the start, you come in from the back and you go out this way. We have to do a one-way system, like in small shops and small supermarkets. A one-way system to stop people passing one another to reduce the risk of infection. So to repeat, we cannot go out the way we came in. only this way through the sacristy. Now, I don't know if you can see clearly, but we're in the sacristy now. When you come, you'll notice that it's had all the stuff taken out of it. Everything it could take out, it's still got cupboards. Now this is the exit to the church. And just again, to remind you, it's the only exit to the church. And there will be another welcomer here in this sacristy. First of all, to make sure nobody comes in. On the outside of these doors, it says no entry. Now that might be a bit of a temptation to people, especially if you're a little bit older, infirm. You might think, I'm going to sneak in through the sacristy. You're not allowed to do that. If you come by car, maybe get someone to drop you at the front, and then they can pick you up at the back. But you can't come in this way unless you're in a wheelchair, something like that. And then we'll have to make special arrangements. As I said, there'll be another welcomer in here, because while the church is open, we have to have 2 welcomers in the church, 2 like stewards at all times. And like the one at the front of the church, this welcomer will also be wearing a face covering and gloves for your protection and for theirs. And this welcomer will remind you to sanitize your hands again before leaving the church. And there will be sanitizers beside the door at the front when you come in, and beside the door when you're leaving. And again, we have to remember the one-way system. We cannot go out the way we came in. I'm just going to pause the video. We're nearly at the end now. Now, this is a bit of tough news to tell you. I don't know if you recognise these doors behind me. These are the doors at the right of the church, at the back. So on the right-hand side, the Sacred Heart Chapel side at the back, and then the doors that lead through to the hall, and very importantly, through to the toilets. Now, one of the conditions that we've had to fulfil, one of the conditions we've been given, is we have to keep the toilets locked. So this door will be kept locked. We're not allowed to let people use the toilets. And this is because the toilet is a place where people touch a lot. And so it's a very, very, it's a space where there's great potential for the spread of infection. And so we've been told we can't open the toilets. I suppose because it will be impossible to keep them sufficiently clean of infection. So we've had to lock them. Just to tell you that, I know that's difficult. You want to come to the church, you can't go to the loo when you need it, but that's the rule. Again, it's not made up by me or the Archbishop. It's one of those strict rules that we've been given, for which we have to comply with in order to open the church. Okay, just to finish off, I wanted to apologise to you all. I hope this video was not too long. I'm sorry for breaking it into 2 parts. I don't know what happened there. So I hope the video wasn't too long or not too complicated, and you can always watch it again, I suppose, or you might find that everything makes more sense once you're here in person. I wanted to apologise to the people of St Swithun's for not making them a special video, but all of the things I've said for St Joseph's apply to St Swithun's as well. The layout there is smaller and simpler. Like St Joseph's, there will be a one-way system, and you will go in through the main entrance and exit through the sacristy, past the toilets, which will be locked, and out the side door beside the garage. And also there will be welcomers there at all times to answer any questions you might have. And like here at St Joseph's, at St Swithun's, some of the benches have been, alternate benches have been cordoned off to preserve social distancing there. So I hope I haven't forgotten anything. If you have any questions about this video or about the opening of the church in general, please email the parish office. And I wish you all well, and repeat that I'm looking forward to seeing all of you again soon. God bless and take care. Bye-bye.